All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Eric Martindale. I'm the founder of eCommerce Group. We are a full spectrum e-commerce and retail media agency. Okay, so as the founder of an e-commerce agency, you might expect me to get up here and talk about e-commerce. And that's not really going to be the case, at least not the e-commerce that you're used to. We're going to talk about the thing that comes after e-commerce, the revolution that comes next. The way we're going to do that is we're going to talk about the expectations and behavior of the customer because they're also changing very, very quickly. We're going to talk about retail and where retail is going and what they have planned. And then we're going to talk about how big AI, the big AI companies like OpenAI, are going to place themselves between the consumer and your brand. And then finally, we'll come up with a playbook for how we navigate that rapidly changing landscape. So we're going to start out with a timeline for context. But before we do, I'm going to ask you guys by show of hands, how many of you use on a fairly regular basis an AI chat tool like ChatGPT or anything else like that? So if you're not paying attention or if you're in the front, that's pretty much everybody besides maybe one or two people. Now, 3 years ago, I know that wasn't the case. 3 years and 1 month ago, there was no such thing. None of these tools existed. On November of 2022, a company called OpenAI released a tool called ChatGPT. 2 months later, that tool called ChatGPT had 100 million users. For reference, that's about a quarter of the size of the United States, man, woman, and child. 2 months after that, ChatGPT scored a 10% on the uniform bar exam. A few months later, ChatGPT scored an 86 on the United States medical licensing exam. The next year, it tested fluent in over 50 written languages, including Mandarin, Farsi, Arabic, some of the most difficult languages to master. And then this year, ChatGPT scored a gold medal or in the gold medal range in the Math Olympiad. And that's not standard straight line math, that's abstract math like number theory. Some pretty difficult stuff. Most importantly, in November, just 1 month ago, the most important milestone on our timeline, ChatGPT turned 3. So in 3 years, we have an artificial intelligence that speaks every written language on earth. Does anybody know who trained ChatGPT to speak Farsi? Anybody know? Yes, the answer is no one or itself, right? It was just doing its job. So we have an artificial intelligence that speaks every written language on earth. It can pass any bar examination. It can ace any bar examination in the US. It can pass the US medical licensing exam. It can do complex financial models and a litany of other things. So if we're looking at ChatGPT and we're evaluating it based on the emails it writes, it might be good to understand why that happens. ChatGPT is trained on the internet. So when it writes an email or maybe a social media post and it does a particularly poor job, it has more bad information to learn from. When it does calculus, it has less bad information to draw from. So our job now that we have 3 years of experience of pilot with ChatGPT, our job here today is to figure out where this takes us, and not just AI, but other rapidly developing technologies like robotics and quantum computing. Our job is to figure out where that takes us in the next 3 years, and more importantly, where that takes you selling physical products. All right, number one, the consumer. Andy Jassy once said, if we make it easier for the customer to buy, they'll buy more. That seems obvious, right? But in reality, that's like a metaphor for business. If we make it easier for the customer to buy, they'll buy more. If we make the product taste better, they'll eat more. If we make the game more fun to play, they'll play more. If we make the social media platform more sticky, they'll scroll longer. And so what we have with the success, massive success of companies like this, like Amazon and TikTok and Meta and Twitter, is a customer that expects these things. They expect experience, they expect speed, they expect convenience, and they don't expect friction. And that's leading them into three rapidly emerging behaviors. One of them is digital behavior. And I'm going to ask you up front, don't conflate digital behavior with e-commerce. All right. It is digital in brick and mortar. It is digital remote. Frictionless fulfillment. What that looks like is, if you can imagine, anybody here have kids? A bunch of you? So this is frictionless fulfillment. Imagine you take 3 kids and you pack them in a car. They argue all the way to the grocery store. Then when you get inside, one of them throws a temper tantrum, one of them drags some chips off the shelf. They all scream for chocolate and candy. You finally load your cart, you get to checkout. They all want Kinder Eggs or candy or whatever they prefer at checkout. You finally get through checkout. You take everything out of your cart, you load it in your car, you drive home, kids are still screaming, get to your house, load them into strollers or whatever, take the kids inside, take your groceries, carry them in 2 bags at a time, unload them and load them into the refrigerator. That's like frictionless checkout, except the opposite. All right. Consumers want the shopping experience, but they don't want those friction points. And then last, social commerce. People want entertainment with their shopping. And you don't need to trust me on this. I'm going to show you by the numbers. Now, I want to set some context. This is a chart that shows, it's from the US Census Bureau, and it shows us year over year retail growth. That's all of retail, year over year growth. And you can see these numbers are pretty unsubstantial. 2%, 3%, 4%, except for 2021, where we all escaped the pandemic. We got a bunch of stimulus checks. We sold our houses, got home equity loans, whatever, went bananas for about a year. But other than that, we're generally around the 3, 4, 5% range. In fact, over the last 10 years, our average retail growth is 5%. Now, if you account for inflation, how significant is that 5% of growth? Not very, right? In fact, in some years, it's probably a little bit of contraction. This is all of retail. Now, if we start to take certain types of shopping, certain types of retail out, this gets a lot more interesting. This is e-commerce as a percentage of total retail. And you can see that every single year, e-commerce eats away at total retail. Now, this is my chart. I made this chart. I'm going to tell you where I got the 2 numbers for this. One is total retail sales, and that's from the US Census Bureau. The other is total e-commerce sales. And the reason I'm telling you this is they come from 2 different places. Total e-commerce sales comes from Salesforce, and it's one of the more conservative sets of numbers. The reason I have it in here is because it's one of the only sources I could find that has total e-commerce every single year. There are a lot of other sources that have more aggressive numbers, but I can't cherry pick data. I have to use one set of data throughout the chart. For 2025, there are companies like Capital One and Adobe Business that have e-commerce as a percentage of retail at 21, 22%. That's 1 out of every $5 spent in some kind of online commerce. If we look at grocery, it gets even more interesting. In online grocery, I know we get hit with a lot of charts from all over the place. We can start to kind of go blind. So what I did here, we have online grocery per year, but I added growth rate. Now, if you look at 2020, we obviously saw massive growth in 2020, 37%. And then after that, it tapers off to high teens, 17%, 19%, 15%. And then finally in 2024, we have 37% again. In fact, 37.7%. We have a larger increase than we had during 2020, during the lockdown. This year, 15.8%. Again, this number is from Salesforce, probably pretty conservative, especially with what we know coming out of Cyber Week, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which were incredible for online commerce. Now I'm going to make it even more interesting and talk about social commerce. Social commerce, you guys know what I'm referring to with social commerce? This is essentially somebody purchasing off of a social media app like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. This chart comes from Grandview Research. It's very difficult to come up with data because some of these platforms don't report GMV. They don't report monthly sales like TikTok. Grandview has been my source of truth for the last couple of years. Now, if you look at this chart, this projects all the way out through 2033. But if you look back at the first few years and you think, oh, there's not much going on there. 2024, there were $1.2 trillion in social commerce sales globally. 1.2 trillion. Does anybody know what retail sales usually come in at in the United States? Anybody in the number of trillions? It's about seven. It should hit about 7.5 this year, 7.5 trillion. So $1.2 trillion through social commerce is not nothing. Then in 2025, we're projected to hit 1.5 trillion. If you do the math, that's a growth rate of 25%. Now, going back to retail growth, according to the US Census Bureau, which is 4% per year, it might hit 4% this year. When you look at online grocery growing at anywhere from 15 to 30% year over year, and social commerce growing at 25% and projected to grow much more rapidly, this is where your opportunities are. This is where your opportunities for growth are. What this speaks to about the customer is your customer, and this is really a post-pandemic customer, they want what they want now. They want it through a screen. They want it through the push of a button or a series of buttons. They want it delivered to their door, and they want it with an experience. This is the customer that you're dealing with today. All right, retail. I don't know can you guys play that video by any chance? A few months ago, I was on a podcast and I had the question posed to me, where will retail be in 5 years? What will it look like? And my answer was, I have no idea. Things are moving too quickly, but I can tell you where it'll be in 2 years. You'll walk into a store and you'll grab a cart that knows you by name. It'll have your rewards points. It'll have possibly a list pushed to it from your phone or maybe even an appliance in your house. That cart will take you to a TV you've been looking at online via the most economic route. And you'll take that TV and you may not even load it in your cart. You may tell the cart or your phone to have that TV delivered to you at a time that works best for you. Then the smart shelf that TV sat on will send a signal deprecating inventory back to an autonomous fulfillment center where a robot will pick and pack its replacement and put it into queue to go back to that store. Now your cart will take you through the store via a pre-planned route, and you'll find everything else you want. You'll pass some digital signage that knows you by name and will serve you personalized recommendations, discounts, promotions because of things you said in the car or at home or on your way to the store. Then you'll finish your trip, you'll check out, you'll walk through an AI imaging system without stopping to pay, you'll drive home, and that TV that you plan to have delivered will be delivered. And depending on where you live, it may be delivered by an unmanned autonomous vehicle of some sort. Now, if you think, oh, that can't be 2 years away. In some cases, it's here right now. Some of you may have seen this in some of Sam's Club or Walmart's new stores of the future. I will tell you right now, every single technology here is already being rolled out, not piloted. Every one of these is being rolled out somewhere in the United States, and every major retailer has plans for most of these for major rollouts this coming year in 2026. What that looks like is Instacart's Caper Cart and Amazon's Dash Cart, which are getting better and better all the time. It looks like Walmart, Whole Foods, Kroger, and other retailers' AI-powered fulfillment. Amazon has 750,000 fulfillment robots. 750,000. It's Aldi, Walmart, Whole Foods, and the digital shelf. And these digital shelves are on version 4 or 5 now. And let me tell you, we don't have time to get into it, but these retailers have very specific plans for these shelves. They'll be very smart in just a couple of years. It's Walmart, Kroger, Amazon, and autonomous delivery. And it's Sam's and Circle K and other retailers with touchless checkout. Now, what does that have to do with you? That might sound cool, it might sound futuristic, it might not. What does that have to do with you selling a physical product brand? Every single one of these technological intersections will become a touch point for a brand to control, to have visibility, and to market to customers. Every single one of them. And we're going to unpack some of these shortly. So that's the customer and what the customer wants and their change in behavior. It's the retailer. Now, how does big AI get between your customer and your brand? And they have some plans. The CEO of Google recently said AI is more profound than electricity or fire. That might sound hyperbolic. And some of you might even think, AI is overblown. It's not that good because you're using it for email or something like that. It's a bubble, whatever. But I will tell you that the top Fortune 100 company CEOs, almost every single one of them, to the last man or woman, disagrees. What do they know that we don't know? So we're gonna talk about how AI gets involved in commerce, and we're gonna walk into it with what customers are already doing, what retailers are already doing, and then finally what big AI has planned. So we talked about how ChatGPT alone had 100 million users, about a quarter of the US, every man, woman, and child within 2 months. But where is it today? Today, ChatGPT has 800 million unique users per week. To put that in perspective, about 10%, almost 10% of the population of the earth, man, woman, child, high rise to hut, is on not AI, ChatGPT per week. That is massive adoption. This number is even more compelling than it looks. 62% of American adults use AI regularly. 62%. Now, if you look at the fact that the silent generation is not using it at all, they have almost no adoption of AI. The baby boomer generation has very low adoption. And then it spikes with Gen X and millennials and Gen Z, and they're all about equal. And then it goes back down with Gen A. So 62% of adults is largely made up of 3 of the 6 generations that we have living with us. Now, more recently, how are consumers using, or how do they expect to use, or how do they want to use AI with shopping? We have some really good data, really interesting data from Cyber Week, just a couple of weeks ago. According to Capital One, AI use for shopping was up 800% year over year. We talked about retail growth being at 5%, online grocery growing at 15 to 30%, 30% year over year growth expected for social commerce, 800% growth in 1 year. This is actually ChatGPT being used for shopping. Even crazier is the number of sales, of online sales, that came from AI referrals. Now, I don't know who was tracking this, brick and mortar foot traffic was down this year, year over year, on Black Friday, which is traditionally a physical store retail holiday, shopping holiday. Foot traffic was down. E-commerce set a new record. And out of that record amount of e-commerce sales on Black Friday, 25% came from an AI referral. What is an AI referral? That means somebody asked AI for an idea of what to buy, and then they bought it. 25.4%. So consumers are using this already, and it's not even optimized for commerce yet. How about retailers? Everybody looks at, if you would ask somebody, who are the AI companies that you're familiar with? You're going to hear OpenAI, you're going to hear Microsoft, Perplexity, Google. You're not often going to hear Amazon, but retail is outspending the tech sector in AI investment. It's the highest spending industry on the planet is retail. Amazon, it's Walmart, it's Kroger, but they are going all in on AI. To me, this one is even more compelling. 90%, according to NVIDIA, 90% of retail chains are already rolling out AI applications. 90% of retail chains. And I would guess, I don't know, but I would guess that 90-10 split probably has to do with size. Your smaller chains probably can't invest to that extent yet. But 90% are not piloting, are not researching, are not planning. They're already rolling out AI applications. That's pricing, forecasting, production, merchandising, and a litany of other complex tasks. And then Amazon and Walmart are already at scale. This is not a tomorrow technology. This is a today technology. Amazon and Walmart are nearly mature in some ways. So how do big companies, AI companies like OpenAI, capitalize on this massive growth of this new consumer behavior, retail adoption? Well, OpenAI, as of last month, is shooting their shot. So you have, again, about almost 10% of the population of the earth is getting on ChatGPT every week. And so if if OpenAI can get a small piece of the many, many, many trillions of dollars in digital retail, that is a substantial play. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now, I'm pretty sure I didn't make up the term AI commerce, but I'm telling everybody I did. We're going to talk about how different this is than e-commerce. And I wouldn't even call commerce coming to ChatGPT e-commerce. It is something altogether different. As of early 2026, a shopper is going to be able to get on ChatGPT, speak a request or a requirement into ChatGPT, and let ChatGPT order it and have it delivered to their home. Whether that product comes from Amazon or Walmart or Shopify or Target or Sam's Club or Etsy, who all of these have already partnered with OpenAI for this new instant checkout, and anybody else who partners with OpenAI will have access to products from any different retailer. So now if we know we spent the last, 10, 15, 20 years learning how to compete on Amazon, learning how to get our products on the shelf at Target, learning how to compete on Shopify stores, Walmart Connect, whatever. How do we compete to sell when the consumer is no longer choosing the retailer? That's what we have to unpack. All right. There are essentially 4 steps that we're working on in our agency that might be useful for you. And as we go through these 4, we're going to touch down very, very briefly. We're almost done. We're going to touch down very briefly on how AI works and how AI makes their selection. But the one thing I want to make sure we're clear on is that the difference between shopping on Amazon and shopping on a platform like ChatGPT, a Gen AI platform, is substantial. When I shop on Amazon, I submit the requirement. I type in the requirement. I'm served with results, and then I shop those results. There's product discovery, there's decision making, and then there's finally a selection. With AI, I outsource most of that to the AI. I submit the requirement. AI now goes and does the product discovery. Does anybody know, has anybody looked up a product on ChatGPT before or one of the other? They're very similar. Do you recall how many search results you get? Anybody recall? Max, do you say not a lot? Max three. Now, if I shop on Amazon, I'm going to get something like, depending on what screen I'm on and what cookies I have, I'm probably going to get 48 results on page 1. And then I'm going to go to page 2 and there's 48 results there, 48 on page 3, on and on to page 6 million. ChatGPT is not going to give me pages. It's going to give me 3. So when your consumer searches for a product like yours, ChatGPT is going to go out to all of the internet and find up to 3. And you better be in those 3 or you're not going to get the sale. So here are the 4 steps. I'm going to be very general. We don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but here are the 4 steps we're taking internally to make sure that the brands we work with are positioned for AI commerce. Number 1, let me go back. Number 1, be where customers are going, right? We already know that customers are drifting hard to digital. Now, make no mistake, that doesn't mean that they're not getting their product from the store, right? So it's probably worth unpacking. A product can come from a physical store, but it's ordered here. It's ordered on a screen. Physical or screens are being used more and more and more to order and purchase product, whether that product is in the store, curbside pickup, grocery delivery, in a fulfillment center, e-commerce, in your warehouse, D2C, or somewhere else. Even in the store, retailers like Sam's Club are leaning into kiosks where customers can order and have product delivered from the store without the customer walking out with it. Be where customers are going. What that looks like is fast delivery platforms, Instacart. DoorDash is growing much more quickly than Instacart. Same thing with Uber Eats, Grubhub. I don't know why my icons overlap the text there, but retailer click and collect apps. There's some really interesting data there. Anybody here in store in Target represent a brand that's in store in Target? Capital One has a report that says that consumers shopping in Target are more likely to use their app in the store than they are not. It's like 62%. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's 60-something percent. But consumers are literally walking around the store consulting their app because there's so much personalization through the app. So when you're competing with retail media, it can be very easy to look at those tools like Target Roundel and Walmart Connect and say, this is pay to play, this is terrible. And it is. But these are actually marketplaces. This is where your digital shoppers, your e-grocery shoppers are going to find product. They're not in the store. So if it doesn't happen through the app, it doesn't happen to that consumer. Social commerce, did it again for some reason. That looks like Meta, that's the big player in the US. And then TikTok, which is the fastest growth social commerce platform in the US. And it's worth mentioning, it's worth including in here, pay attention to Amazon and what Amazon is doing. Amazon does not miss. At least they haven't yet. Does anybody know what Amazon announced last month in regard to grocery delivery? 30-minute delivery. 30-minute delivery. Instacart can't touch that. Amazon has had a problem, and that problem with grocery, that problem looks like Instacart and Grubhub and Uber Eats. No longer. As of last month, Amazon is going to start delivering 2,000 grocery items in 30 minutes. Watch Amazon. Watch what Amazon does and compete there. We'll come back to that. Watch for new levers of control through retail media. New levers of control through retail media. Traditionally, our electronic platforms, the access we have is divided up into data or insights and retail media. That is going away. And as that goes away, you're going to have more control and more insight, more that you can do through your retail media networks. So make sure that somebody on your team is paying attention. In January, Ahold is finally launching the first retail media platform called Edge. That Edge platform will combine insights, data, retail media, and certain levers of control like pushing in-store promotions all from the same place. If they're able to pull that off, that'll raise the bar for retail media, and everyone else will have to follow suit. Number 3, learn to sell to the AI. We already said that if a consumer shops through AI, they're outsourcing a lot of the cognitive load associated with shopping. So now you're no longer convincing the consumer so much, unless you're one of those 3 search results that comes up in ChatGPT. Now you're convincing the AI. Now you have to, if a customer types in low calorie, high protein bars, it's not as much the consumer that has to believe you, it's the AI. And here's how that works. People, first, it starts with understanding that people search differently in AI. They're not typing in a keyword or a couple of keywords. They're asking the AI to do something or tell them something. AI indexes very differently. All right. So if it's going to choose a bar as the top low calorie, high protein bar, it does it for different reasons than Google and certainly different reasons than a customer might. It prioritizes authority and formal structure over creative writing. Creative writing means nothing to AI, absolutely nothing. And then last, AI is there to solve a problem for the customer, not for product discovery. It is to come up with an answer to a customer's problem. Last, treat everything as an AI training layer, meaning everything that's out there on the internet can and does speak to AI, everything. That looks like your retail media platforms. Again, those need to be treated as marketplaces. They need to have all of the associated data with your brand. Social media platforms. AI absolutely references platforms like TikTok and Meta. Customer reviews. AI can reference your response to customers. Anybody who's on Amazon knows that customers leave reviews, unfair, wrong, right, and you are best served to respond to those. These are also messaging opportunities for AI. And then last, everything out there, again, TikTok, Amazon, Walmart.com, even Reddit speaks and trains to AI. I will leave you guys with a quote from the great business analyst, Wayne Gretzky. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it's been. And I would say the puck is moving faster right now than it ever has in history. What questions you guys have for me? All right, guys, I'll stick around for a few if anybody wants to catch me. Otherwise, good luck and enjoy the rest of your show.